There was once a pastor visiting an older man whom he hadn't seen for a while. "At your age," the pastor said to this gentleman, "you should be thinking a little more about the hereafter." The old gentleman replied, "Oh, I do all the time. No matter where I go, be it into the living room or into the kitchen or even out into the garage, I often ask myself, what am I hereafter?" Now, many of us just don't think much about what is beyond this life. We don't think much about heaven. If I were to ask the question, how much do you think about heaven, about the future? I don't think there would be that many people who would say, I do. As it happens, just today I received an email where the author of that email described flying over the ocean in a large jet aeroplane. He says, "I began to imagine the cup of coffee that I had in my hand and opening the window and pouring it out into that immense body of water below." Then he went on to say this, that he thought of that cup of coffee as representing his time here on earth, compared to that vast body of water being eternity. Hey, what a good way of thinking about it. Heaven is, after all, difficult for us to imagine. Clearly, it's much different from what we experience here on this earth. And so much better. It's just hard for us to get our minds around it at all. Yet, even though it promises happiness, fulfillment, and joy, heaven reminds us of this, that we're not going to live here in this life forever. We are going to die someday, and we will leave our loved ones behind. We're then going to stand before a righteous and a holy God, where we will have to give an account of our lives here on earth. Now, that's not something we always want to think about, is it? The Christian author Philip Yancey wrote these words: "Although most of us believe in an afterlife, no one much wants to talk about it. Christians believe that we will spend eternity in a splendid place called heaven," he wrote. Then he went on to say, "Isn't it a little bizarre that we simply ignore heaven, acting as if it doesn't matter?" Death. Now, there's something we certainly don't want to talk about. We don't even want to think about it. But we must. Every one of us has an appointment that we will not miss, and that appointment is death. C.S. Lewis said that the statistics on death are impressive so far. It is 1 out of 1. It must be said, though, that death is not our final destination. Death is only a doorway to our final destination. Death is the point beyond which we do not return to life on this earth. So the question is not will we die. That's something that's going to happen. Even though we don't want to think about it, it's something that will happen. The ultimate question is this: where will you be after you die? Jesus said there are 2 roads in this life. Hear his words as recorded in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. "You can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate," Jesus said. "The highway to hell is broad, it's wide. The gate is wide for those who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow and the road is difficult, and only a few ever find it. The wide road, that is the easy road, leads to judgment, destruction, and hell. On that road, people seem to be having a wonderful time. It's like a big party. It's full of atmosphere. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, is the motto. But there is an emptiness, a loneliness, and there is insecurity. The narrow road, on the other hand, leads to heaven. It leads to hope. Travelling on that road can be difficult because it goes against the grain of all that this world has to offer or wants to offer. It goes against the tide of pleasure and indeed sin. Which road are you on? Where is your final destination going to be? The truth is that we actually get to choose our destination now, here on earth. Our destination where we will spend eternity. Let's not think that we can walk down the road leading to hell only to wind up in heaven when we die. It simply doesn't work that way. There's only one way that anyone can ever enter heaven. That way is because they have believed in Jesus Christ and they've asked him into their life. They've accepted him as their Saviour, their Lord. The scriptures are clear. Those who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. The rejection of God's plan for dealing with sin in our lives isolates, it separates us from him. That beautiful verse, John 3:16, reminds us that God so loved the world, even though the world had turned its back on him, God so loved that world that he gave his only son Jesus, that whoever believes in him would not perish, but they would have everlasting life. You see, there is hope. It's good news. And it's certainly not because of who we are, not because we've been doing good, not because we've been doing all the right things. There is hope because Jesus paid the ultimate price for our sin when he died in our place. So that all who call upon him can be set free from the penalty of sin. You see, that's good news indeed. Now, if you're uncertain as to where you will spend eternity, you need to think about this, ponder it. And it's a question that must be answered sooner or later. Ask Jesus to come into your life. Quick prayer. Lord, come into my life. Forgive me for the wrongs that I've committed. Forgive me for my sin. And Lord, I accept that amazing grace that you have for me. You see, this is a free gift for you, one that we must choose to accept. Choose wisely. May God richly bless you this week.